Welcome back to Sneakers, Cars, and Leadership. I'm your host, Dre Hub. And if you caught part one of this 5-part series around AI and leadership, you already know what this series is about. It's about 5 episodes where we go deep into a conversation called The Algorithm Doesn't Care About Your Title. And I will repeat this again. I'm not here to hype AI. I'm here to use AI as a mirror to look at how we actually lead, not how we think we lead. So in part one, it was about delegation. And the thesis was most leaders can't actually delegate because they never had to be precise about their own thinking. AI just made that visible. In part two, in this episode, it's about something adjacent. And honestly, it might be uncomfortable for some. Because in this episode, we're not talking about you. We're talking about your organization, your team, who you lead. And we're talking about what happens when you introduce a multiplier into a system that was already broken. This episode is called The Bottleneck, has a name tag. And the thesis today is AI scales your operation, but a multiplier doesn't fix a breeze. It accelerates it. And if you got a bottleneck, AI will make that bottleneck more visible, more expensive, and more undeniable than it has ever been. The question is whether you have the courage to read what it's showing.
Sneakers, cars, leadership. Sneakers, cars, leadership. Atlanta. Feel different. Legacy moves.
A podcast that goes into the essential leadership skills needed to excel in both personal and professional life. Hosted by me, Dre Hub. This podcast offers insightful conversations on how to be an impactful leader.
Bring AI into your organization or to your team in a meaningful way. You've seen the demos, you've read the memos, you sat in the all hands where somebody from IT or a strategy showed you a slide that said AI-enabled transformation with a hockey stick graphic underneath it. And somewhere in the back of your mind, if you're being honest, you're thinking, this is going to be great. We're going to move faster. We're going to do more with less. We're going to finally close the gap between where we are and where we need to be. But here's what that thinking is missing. AI doesn't close gaps. AI widens whatever already exists. If you have a high-functioning team, AI makes them dramatically more productive. If you have dysfunctional team, AI makes the dysfunction dramatically more visible for everyone to see. This is not hypothetical. This plays out the same way in every organization that tries to layer technology onto an existing problem or existing process or existing tools without first interrogating the process. The technology doesn't fix the org. It exposes it. AI exposes it. It doesn't fix. And what it exposes specifically is the bottlenecks. The places where work slows down, decisions stall, and accountability gets working. Those bottlenecks always have a source. They're either structural, built into the process itself, or they're personal. And the personal ones are the ones nobody wants to put a name to. Because when you name a personal bottleneck, you're not talking about process. You're talking about a human being. You're talking about a person. And it might be a person with tenure. It might be a person with relationships. Possibly a person whose removal creates its own set of problems. AI is about to force that conversation. And the leaders who are ready for it, who have been honest with themselves about where the friction actually lives in their organization, those are the leaders who are going to use this moment, build something, to build something stronger. The ones who aren't ready are going to spend the next 18 months confused by the expensive AI tools that they brought aren't producing results like they promised. We see it all the time. You hear about it all the time. You read about it all the time. The tool isn't the problem. I'll say it again. The tool isn't a problem. It never was. So let's talk about what it is. But before we get into that, we always have to talk really about the kicks. And we always have to talk about rides. So today, the pick is the Adidas Ultra 4D. And I want to be very clear and detailed about the 4D. Not the Ultra Boost, not the Ultra Boost, not the Adi Zero, the 4D specifically, because there's a reason this shoe exists, and it's worth understanding. The sole on the Ultra 4D, it's not modified foam, it's not injected plastic. It's a 3D printed from data. Thousands of points from real athletes, biomechanical research, pressure mapping. Adidas built a lattice structure that responds to force differently depending on where your foot lands. It looks like something out of a science lab because it came out of that sole is a physical visualization of information becoming structure. The data didn't stay in a spreadsheet. It became something you can stand on. That is exactly the energy for today's episode. AI produces data. It surfaces patterns. It identifies where things are moving, where things are stuck, where, let's say, the load is distributed unevenly. But that data is only valuable. It's only valuable if someone in the organization has the courage to let it become structural, to let the information change how they build the team, run the process, or the person. Most leaders look at AI output the way someone looks at a 4D soul for the first time. Interesting. It's impressive. But they've never seen anything quite like it. And then they put it on a shelf, lace back up to old Nikes. So today is for the leaders who are willing to let the data become structure. That's a different level of commitment. And it takes a different level of courage. A courage to step out of the norm, a courage to not pick up that same old pair of Nikes and get that new technology, new tool, new pair that you haven't really built a relationship with, built trust. So now we'll go from the kicks And we talk about the ride. Today's ride is the Bugatti Chiron. And we're like, hey, we're going with this Bugatti. This flow in here. So on a dirt road, and I want you to sit with that image for a second. The Bugatti Chiron on a dirt road. Because this is the whole reason for this episode built in this picture. The Chiron is one of the most ambiguous engineering achievements in the automobile industry. 16 cylinders, 8 liters, quad turbo, over 1,500 horsepower. It holds the production car speed record. Bugatti spent a decade refining it for one purpose: maximum performance on a smooth, controlled surface. It was engineered so precisely for that environment that the engineering itself becomes the argument for why the environment matters. It wasn't built to be put on a dirt road. So now why put it on a dirt road? A rutted, unpaved, uneven surface. You got rain soft edges. And watch what happens. The car doesn't become less capable on a dirt road. The road becomes a constraint. All that engineering, all that performance, all that investment. And the limiting factor is not the machine. It's not the machine. It's the surface you're running it on. So that is AI in a broken organizational process. The tool is extraordinary. The surface, the process, the structure, the decision-making architecture, the people holding key choke points. That's the dirt road. And you cannot engineer your way out of it by buying a better car. You know, a lot of organizations are saying, they're sitting here and saying and sitting on this Citron level AI capabilities right now and wondering why they're not faster. The answer isn't the technology. The answer is the road. The ride pick today is a reminder that power and performance mean nothing if the environment cannot support them. And the environment is your job to fix, not the vendor, not Claude, not Copilot, not DeepSeek, not IT. It's yours. Because we've been given that state as leaders and that authority and that accountability and decision making to do that. This is where we're going. This is where we are. This is really the challenge that's in front of everyone now. So let's define bottlenecks precisely. Because the word gets used loosely, and loose language produces what? Loose thinking. A bottleneck is any point in any system where the flow of work, decisions, information slows disproportionately relative to the environment and everything around it. In manufacturing, this is called constraint. Goldratt built an entire management theory around it. The theory of constraints. And the core insight is really simple. The throughput of any system is determined by its weakest link. You don't improve the system by making everything faster. You improve the system by identifying and addressing the constraint. Most leaders understand this conceptually. Very few apply it honestly to their own organizations. Because when you apply it honestly, you stop asking, how do we go faster? And start asking, what is the key thing that's preventing us from going faster? And the answer to that question is almost never. We need better technology. That's not the answer. There are three bottlenecks in the AI exposure. There's three types. Type one, process bottleneck. This is the most uncomfortable one because it finds it's not personal, it's structural. Approval chains that require 7 sign-offs for a $5,000 decision. Reporting structures that route information through 4 layers before it reaches the person that needs it. Beating cadences that create artificial weight. States between different decisions. But these are fixable. They are. They require willingness to redesign the process, but they don't require anyone to lose their job or their identity. AI exposes this really fast. When you automate around them, the waste state becomes obvious. The second type of exposure with bottleneck that AI pulls out is the capability bottleneck. This one is more uncomfortable. This is when a person or a team lacks the skill to operate at the level that the organization needs. Not what the organization was, but what it needs now. They're not bad people. I mean, they may be, because they may be deeply loyal. They may have been excellent 5 years ago in a different version of the role or the organization or the time period. But the role has evolved and they haven't kept pace. And now they are the constraint. AI accelerates this exposure because it raises the floor of what a capable operator can produce. When someone using AI is doing, in 2 hours what your bottleneck person does in 2 days, whew, that gap is no longer abstract. It's visible, it's measurable, because you can compare both times. Type 3, the political bottleneck. Whew, this is the one nobody wants to name. This is when the bottleneck, it isn't a process, it isn't a skill, it isn't, something within the tool. It's a relationship, a tenure, a title, or a fear. Someone whose approval is required, not because they add value, but because of who they are in the organization. Someone who buy-in is necessary, not because they understand the work, but because they have the ability to kill it. AI exposes this too. Because when the data is clear, when the output is measurable, when the pathway forward is visible, the only remaining obstacle is someone choosing not to move. And that choice, it has a face. Huh. And it probably is, it hits deep. So type 3 is where most AI transformation efforts go to die. Not because the technology failed, because the organization didn't have the leadership courage. It didn't have the leadership courage to address that was protecting the bottleneck. The political architecture was protecting that bottleneck. And this is where team leaders earn their compensation or don't. Because addressing a type 3 bottleneck requires you to have built enough trust, enough credibility, and enough organizational capital to either move that person into a role where they're not a constraint, develop them into someone who can operate at the required level that you need or make that call that the organization's future outweighs that relationship. None of those options are comfortable. All three require leadership, and AI is going to keep surfacing the data that makes the conversation unavoidable. It's going to continue to expose, it's going to continue to bring light to that person, the organization. It is really, is going to really be uncomfortable. So I want to give you the diagnostic process that actually works. Because naming the three types of bottlenecks is not useful if you don't have a way to identify which one you're dealing with. You need to do that homework. And then also, what do you got to do about it? So step one, map the flow before you deploy. Before you introduce any AI tool into a meaningful workflow, map the current process end to end. Not the official process, the actual process. How is it actually being done or performed? The way work actually moves. This is different almost always from what the org chart or SOP says it should be. You need to ask your team, hey, walk me through the last time we did this. What actually happened? Where did you wait? Who did you have to chase? What decisions couldn't be made until something or someone specific weighed in? What conversations will surface your bottlenecks faster? That conversation will. Then any constraint assignment or assessment that you do. What you're looking for are the wait states, the places where work stops moving and sits, not because it's being worked on, because it's waiting for something, an approval, a response, a decision, a person to become available. After that person's on vacation or out on leave, that map is your constraint inventory. Now, step two, deploy AI into the fast lanes first. Here's a counterintuitive move that most organizations get wrong. Try to employ AI into places where they're already struggling. No, we got to fix that. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to produce anything. They try to use technology to fix broken parts. Don't do that. Deploy AI into the parts of your process that are already working. Let the high performers get faster. Let the capable parts of the org get dramatically more capable. And then watch what happens at the handoff points. The places where the AI accelerated work hits the part of the process that hasn't changed. That handoff is where your bottleneck will announce itself. Because when everything before the handoff is moving at twice the speed, and then everything after is moving at the same speed, the same pace it always has, the constraint becomes undeniable. You can't argue with the data. You can't say it's a resource problem or a priority problem. The constraint is visible. It's located. And this is where it gets there. It gets uncomfortable. It has a name and it has a face. So step three, read the resistance correctly when AI adoption hits friction inside your organization. Your first instinct might be to diagnose it and change resistance. People who are uncomfortable with new technology, who need more training, need more time. Sometimes that's true, but not always. And the mistake of treating political resistance like change resistance is one of the most expensive errors a leader can make. Change resistance, you know what it looks like? I don't know how to use this. I need more training. Can you show me how this works in my specific context? These people want to move forward. They just need the support. They're ready. They're ready to go. Political resistance looks like we should study this more before we commit. I'm not sure this is the right tool for our team. Let's get more stakeholder input before we proceed. The language is reasonable. The intent is to delay. And delay in the context of AI adoption is a strategy for serving the status quo, for keeping things how they are. Which means preserving the bottleneck, the difference between change resistance and political resistance is not language. It's what the person does when you remove their stated objection. If you give them the training and they still resist, it was never about the training. Leaders who can read this distinction accurately are the ones who move their organizations forward. But on the contrary, the ones who can't end up investing months in change management programs, or for people who were never going to change, you might want to be careful here. Because I'm not saying be callous, I'm saying be accurate. You can treat people with respect and still be clear out of what's actually happening. Compassion and clarity are not in conflict, but clarity has to come first. Or the compassion, whew, it gets weaponized against the progress. And it slows you down. You won't be able to move forward. Become stagnant because that political piece, that personal piece, it's eating away at what you're trying to do. Metaphor today, and today, we're going to take this metaphor, we're going to the gym. Specifically, we're going to the bench press. And I want you to picture a specific scenario. One that plays out in every gym, in every city, more often than it should. So you got a lifter who is serious about their training. You know, they built up their chest, their shoulders, their triceps over years of consistent work. They're strong, like really strong. So imagine this. They're in the gym. They load the bar. They get under it and they push the weight that most people in the gym aren't moving. Impressive by any standards. But here's the thing. The right side is stronger than their left side, significantly stronger. And you can see it if you watch closely. The bar tilts. Not a lot, just a few degrees. But at the weights they're moving, a few degrees is a difference between a clean rep and a drop bar, or worse. Now, they have two choices. They can keep adding weight to the bar and hope that the left side catches up. But they can identify the weak side, strip the ego out of the equation, and build the imbalance before it becomes an injury. Most organizations keep adding weight to that bar, just adding weight, adding on pounds, adding on plates. They buy more technology, they hire more people, they launch an endless amount of initiatives. And they do all of it while the left side is still lagging. The bar keeps tilting, keeps tilting. And they wonder why the lift feels unstable. The bottleneck is your left side. It's not going to strengthen itself because you add more weight to the bar. In fact, the more weight you add, the more dangerous the imbalance becomes. You want to know what that weight is in this scenario, in this metaphor? It's AI. Significant, meaningful weight, the most powerful addition to the bar that most organizations have seen in a generation. And if you put on a bar that's already tilting, you are not going to get stronger. It's not going to be a stronger lift. You're going to get an injury. And organizational injuries, the loss of a key initiative, the departure of strong talent who got frustrated by the broken system, the credibility hit with the visible failure, those, they take years to heal. But so what? So here's your Monday morning application. Before you add more weight to the bar, before you expand the AI rollout, before you launch the next phase, before you add another tool to the stack, answer these 3 questions. Question 1, where is the bar tilting right now? Not where you think it might tilt. Where is it actually tilting, currently visibly tilting? What's the workflow? What's the team? What's the decision point? Or the individual where the work slows down every single time. Name it, claim it. Not our approval process is slow. Name the specific place and the specific cause. Question 2, what type of bottleneck is it? Process, capability, or political? Because the intervention is completely different for each one. A process bottleneck gets redesigned. A capability bottleneck gets developed or replaced. Just tread a little lightly on this one. A political bottleneck requires a leadership conversation that most people are avoiding. Know which one you're dealing with before you decide what you're going to do about it. Question 3, am I willing to address it before I add more weight? This is the honest question. Because if the answer is no, if you're going to just roll with the next AI initiative anyway, without addressing the constraint, then at minimum, go in with clear eyes. Just please go in with clear eyes. Know that you're making a choice to load a tilted bar. You got to own that risk. Don't be surprised by the result. The gym don't lie. Neither does the data. The only variable is whether the person looking at both is willing to tell themselves the truth. And this is where it really hits home for a lot of leaders. Having that honest self-reflection with themselves, having that mirror moment where they're looking inside and looking internal to ask themselves the right questions. So this week, draw the map, not the org chart. Draw the map, the actual flow of work. Pick one meaningful process in your organization. Trace it end to end. Find every weight state. Then ask, what's causing this weight? Process, capability, or politics. Write it down. That document is more valuable than any AI roadmap you'll get from a vendor. That's the assignment. Not a workshop, not a strategy session, one process. End to end, every weight, state, name, and it's categorized. I want to be honest about what this exercise will show you. Because it might be, you know what? It is. It's going to be uncomfortable. If you do it rigorously, if you actually trace the work, instead of describing how you think the work flows, you are almost certainly going to find a type 3 bottleneck. A political constraint that everyone around you already knows. They already know about it, but no one has said it out loud to you yet. Because here's something I've learned. The people closest to the work almost always knows where the friction is. They just adapted around it. They built workarounds. They stopped pushing in certain directions because you know what they learned over time? All that pushing, all that sweat, all that energy in that direction doesn't go anywhere. And they know it. They've just been waiting for a leader with enough credibility and enough courage to ask the question and actually act on the answer. You need to be that leader. That 4D soul that I picked today, data becoming structure, that's the standard. Don't let the information stay in the spreadsheet. Let it change how you build. Let it change how you develop. Let it change how you go about your day. Let it change your organization. Because it will certainly, most certainly help change the outcome. It most certainly will change the dynamic of your team. So that is part 2 of this series. The algorithm doesn't care about your title. As a reminder, the first part of this or last week's episode was about you and your clarity, your delegation, your prompt. This episode today was about your organization. The constraint you've been working around instead of working on. The next episode is called The Trust Deficit. And the thesis is going to challenge something that a lot of leaders take for granted. The assumption that your team will adapt tools that you give them. They won't. We won't. They won't. We won't. They won't. We won't. Not if they don't trust the organization. And we're going to get specific about what trust actually requires at different levels of leadership. Not the version from the management book, the real version. So if this series is landing with you, share it with one leader in your network. The kind of leader who needs to hear something real. Not something that makes them feel comfortable, the warms and fuzzy, something that needs to be real. They need to hear it. So I'm Dre Hub. This is Car's Leadership. Know your constraints, name them accurately, and address them before you add more weight to the bar. Talk to you later.